The night shift was usually quiet on the outer edge of the Zalari Empire. The stars hung like cold diamonds, silent and endless. Inside the radar control room, Lyra, a young alien technician with violet eyes and silver skin, sipped her warm drink and listened to the hum of the machines. Nothing ever happened here. That's why she liked it. No politics, no noise, just the rhythm of data passing through her hands. But tonight, something broke the silence. A sharp beep echoed through the hall, cutting through her calm. Lyra frowned and glanced at the monitor. A strange light blinked on the edge of the screen, a dot that wasn't supposed to exist. She checked again. It was there, faint but steady. Probably a ghost signal, she murmured, trying to stay calm. She typed in a few commands to filter out background noise. The signal remained. Her heart gave a nervous flutter. The code flashing on her screen was ancient, almost forgotten. Terran origin code. Humans. But that couldn't be right. Humans were myths. Stories told by elders to scare children. They were said to be dangerous, emotional creatures who destroyed themselves long ago in a great fire. The Empire had erased every record of them centuries ago. No one truly believed they ever existed. Lyra's breath came faster. She zoomed in on the data feed. The signal was moving, slow but clear. A ship, metal hull, atmosphere re-entry pattern, human design. Every instinct in her screamed that it was impossible. "Computer, confirm object type," she ordered, her voice trembling slightly. Result, unidentified vessel. Origin, Terran pattern. Her cup fell from her hand, spilling across the console. Lyra's supervisor, an older officer named Commander Threx, looked up from his desk. "What's going on, Lyra?" She hesitated. "Sir, I think we've picked up something strange. Sector 9G, near the nebula line." Threx walked over with an irritated sigh. "Strange how?" She pointed to the screen. "The design, the signal code, it matches the old human frequency records from the archive." He froze for a heartbeat, then his face darkened. "That's impossible. Those records are restricted. You shouldn't even know what human code looks like." Lyra swallowed. "I read about it in the old training database." Just a small note, he cut her off sharply. "Delete this reading. It's probably a sensor glitch. Run a diagnostics check and clear it." "But sir, it's real. The trajectory, the pattern, it's not random." "Enough." Threx slammed his hand on the console, making the screens flicker. "Humans are extinct. That's official truth. Do not repeat this nonsense." Lyra nodded, but her hand stayed still on the controls. The commander left, muttering under his breath about faulty systems. As soon as he was gone, Lyra's curiosity burned brighter than her fear. She whispered softly, "Computer, lock this file to private access." File secured. The signal pulsed again. A weak transmission tried to break through static. Lyra leaned close, adjusting the frequency. At first, it was only noise, then a faint voice, deep and raw, speaking in a language her translator barely recognized. "Mayday. This is Captain Elias of the Vanguard. Requesting any life form. Please respond." Lyra's heart nearly stopped. The voice was human, rough, tired, and filled with something she couldn't name. Hope. She should have reported it. She should have shut down the system. But she didn't. "Captain Elias," she whispered, "this is Control Station 47 of the Zalari Outer Line. Identify yourself." The reply came after a long pause, broken by static. "Zalari? Thought your kind erased us centuries ago. Guess myths die hard." Lyra's eyes widened. "You are human?" A soft laugh came through. "Weak but alive. Last time I checked," her mind raced. If this was true, if a human ship had really survived, everything she had been taught was a lie. She traced the signal's location. It was near the border nebula, where storms made travel almost impossible. The human ship was damaged, drifting, losing power fast. Lyra hesitated. If she alerted her superiors, they would destroy it to keep the secret buried. But if she stayed silent, she could lose her post, or worse, be accused of treason. Her fingers hovered over the control pad. The voice spoke again, quieter this time. "If anyone's listening, we're not hostile, we just need help." Lyra looked out the observation window. Beyond the glass, the stars shimmered cold and far. She imagined a single human out there, fighting to survive, believing no one was listening. "Hold on," she said softly. "I'll find a way." She downloaded the signal logs to a private drive and turned off the console lights. The hum of the machines returned to their usual calm rhythm, but her heart was racing like a drum. In that moment, she knew she had crossed a line she could never return from, because if the humans were real, then everything the Empire had built on their extinction was about to collapse. Lyra stood by the viewport, watching the nebula glow like a wound in space. Somewhere in that light, a lost human ship waited, and for reasons she didn't understand, she felt connected. The myths were no longer myths. The impossible signal had called to her, and she had answered. Lyra couldn't sleep that night. The sound of that human voice still echoed in her mind, rough, tired, yet full of life. She lay in her bunk staring at the ceiling, her silver skin glowing faintly under the dim blue lights of the dorm chamber. Outside, the space station floated quietly around the frozen moon, a lonely outpost at the edge of the known galaxy. She tried to convince herself it was all a mistake. Maybe the signal was just old data bouncing through time. Maybe it wasn't real. But deep down she knew it was. She had heard emotion in that voice, fear, pain, and something else. Something she hadn't heard in any alien voice before. Hope. By morning, she made her decision. She would not report it. Instead, she would listen again. She waited until the control center changed shifts. The day team was busy handling cargo scans and patrol updates, too distracted to notice her slip into the lower communication chamber. It was a dark, small room used for long-range signal testing. Perfect for secrets. Lyra turned on the receiver, fingers trembling slightly. The static returned first, loud and chaotic. Then through the noise came the familiar pulse. Mayday. This is Captain Elias of the Vanguard. If anyone can hear me, we're losing oxygen. Coordinates. Nebula Line Sector 9G. Her translator flickered to life. Lyra adjusted the filters, cleaning the signal until the words became clearer. The human's voice was strained but calm. He was trying to sound strong for whoever might be listening. Captain Elias, she said softly into the transmitter. This is Officer Lyra of Zalari Control Station 47. I'm reading your signal. You are very far from home. There was a pause, followed by a weak laugh. Home doesn't exist anymore, Officer Lyra, but I'll take friendly company. Lyra felt her heart tighten. Your ship is damaged. You cannot survive in the nebula without assistance. I can request a drone to— No. His voice suddenly sharpened. Do not send anything with Zalari markings. If your people find me, they'll finish what they started. She froze. What do you mean? You don't know, do you? His tone softened. They erased us. The Council wiped our colonies, destroyed our cities, then buried the truth. We were not myths, Lyra. We were warnings. Lyra's hands shook. The Empire had always spoken of the cleansing, an ancient war to remove a dangerous enemy species. But they never said who. They never said humans. Why would they do that? She whispered. Because humans don't obey, he said, his voice fading in and out. We think, we feel, we fight for what's right. Empires don't like that. Lyra swallowed hard. For the first time in her life, she felt ashamed of her uniform. Your coordinates, she said quickly. Repeat them. I'll try to pinpoint your ship's position before the storm grows worse. You'll help me? She hesitated only for a moment. Yes. Then you're braver than you know. The transmission flickered. The nebula storms distorted his signal, scattering it like dust. Lyra worked quickly, tracing the energy patterns, setting a marker. Her monitor blinked, signal locked. There, she whispered. I found you. The human sighed with relief. You have no idea how good it is to hear another voice. Stay alive, Lyra said. I'll find a way to reach you. Be careful, Lyra. If your command discovers what you're doing, they'll brand you a traitor. They don't want humans returning. The signal cut off abruptly, replaced by static. Lyra sat there in the dim light, her hands still on the console. Her mind was spinning. The myths were real. The Empire had lied. And now, somewhere in the nebula, a dying man waited for her help. Hours later, as she walked through the glass corridor that overlooked the moon's surface, she heard the station alarm hum faintly. A patrol cruiser had entered the system. Commander Threx's voice echoed through the intercom. Attention, all personnel. Unknown signal activity detected near the border. Imperial agents are en route for investigation. Lyra's blood ran cold. They had detected the same signal. She rushed to her station. Threx and 2 officers were already studying the radar. Looks like a false alarm, one said. Probably a derelict satellite. No, Threx replied grimly. The code matches an ancient transmission pattern. Classified history level. We'll send a hunter drone to eliminate it. Lyra's chest tightened. Eliminate it? She asked. Shouldn't we try to recover the data first? Threx gave her a long, hard look. Some things are better left buried, officer. You'll understand when you're older. She bit her tongue and nodded, forcing her face to stay calm. But inside she was panicking. If that drone reached the human ship, Elias would die. That night she made her choice. She slipped into the hangar where the small scouting shuttles were kept. Her badge gave her access. No one questioned her night shifts anymore. She loaded a small supply pack, oxygen, power cells, med kits, and uploaded the coordinates she had saved. The hangar doors opened silently, revealing the endless dark beyond. Computer, she whispered. Launch stealth mode. The engines purred softly as her shuttle lifted from the platform. Stars stretched before her like a sea of light. She took one last look at the station, the only home she had ever known, and then turned toward the nebula. The forbidden transmission had called her, and she had answered again. As the storm swallowed her shuttle, lightning danced across the pink and blue clouds of gas. The navigation system flickered under interference. Somewhere out there, Captain Elias was waiting. Lyra gripped the controls tighter. Hold on, human, she whispered. I'm coming. The small ship vanished into the swirling light, and the legend of the humans began to breathe once more. The nebula looked like a living ocean made of fire and mist. Blue lightning crawled through clouds of red gas, and gravity waves twisted space like rippling water. Lyra's small shuttle drifted into that storm, every light flickering as if the ship itself feared what lay ahead. She gripped the control handles tightly. Navigation, compensate for turbulence, she ordered. The computer responded with a warning tone. Severe interference detected. Manual control recommended. Of course it is. Lyra muttered and took the controls herself. Her heart raced. The readings were unstable. Radiation spikes, ion storms. She shouldn't be here. No one should. But somewhere inside this chaos was a dying human ship, something that wasn't supposed to exist. As she pushed forward, her sensors caught a faint energy pulse ahead. Her translator screen flickered. Signal strength, 6%. It was weak, but it was him. This is Captain Elias. Oxygen reserves. 20 minutes left. The voice faded again, but it was enough. Lyra followed the signal trail through a dark cloud that blocked all light. Her hands shook slightly, but she kept going. Then suddenly, silence. The storm calmed. The nebula opened up like a curtain, and there it was. A massive, broken ship floated in the glow of the nebula's heart. Its surface was scarred and burned. One side was torn open, showing a glimpse of inner decks and shattered halls. The old Terran letters were still visible across the hull. Vanguard. Lyra gasped softly. The legends had always described human ships as primitive, ugly machines of war. But this one, it was beautiful in its own way, simple, strong, made with purpose. She circled it slowly, her scanner mapping the wreck. Life signs, one faint reading deep inside the central deck. He was alive. Docking system engage, she whispered. The shuttle's claws clamped onto the human hull with a metallic echo. The airlock hissed open. Cold mist poured in, and Lyra's breath turned shallow. She put on her helmet, grabbed a small torch, and stepped inside. The interior was dark, silent except for the creak of old metal. The walls were covered with dust and dried residue. She floated down the corridor, her boots magnetized to the floor. Everywhere she looked, she saw signs of struggle, scorch marks, broken panels. A trail of dried blood leading into the command deck. Captain Elias? She called out, her voice echoing faintly. No reply, only static from her comlink. She moved deeper until she reached a door jammed halfway open. For a moment she hesitated, then forced it apart with a hiss of effort. Inside she found him. The human sat against the console, his suit cracked, helmet resting beside him. His skin was pale, his beard untrimmed, and his eyes, blue, sharp, tired, turned toward her weakly. So, the voice from the stars was real, he whispered. Lyra's heart jumped. Captain Elias. He smiled faintly. Didn't think anyone would come. You shouldn't be alive, she said softly, kneeling beside him. Your oxygen ran out hours ago, he murmured. Been rerouting emergency tanks. Guess I got lucky. Lyra quickly opened her medkit and connected a small air unit to his chest plate. This will stabilize you. Try to breathe slowly. As the air flowed in, his color returned slightly. He looked at her, studying her face, the glowing marks on her skin, the long silver hair that floated gently in zero gravity. "You're not like them," he said quietly. "The others I met, they didn't talk. They just fired." Lyra looked away. "I'm not a soldier." "Good. We've had enough of those." For a moment, silence filled the room. Only the faint hum of the nebula outside could be heard. Lyra's gaze fell on a small holographic photo near his console. It showed a group of humans, smiling, young, their uniforms marked with the same Terran insignia. "Your crew?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Gone, most during the crash, some before." "I'm sorry," she whispered. He gave a sad smile. "You sound like you mean it." "That's new." Lyra's eyes met his. "I don't understand why our history hid you. Why they made humans sound like monsters." Elias leaned back weakly. "Because monsters are easier to kill than people." His words hit her like a shock. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Everything she'd been taught since childhood, the Empire's glory, the stories of unity and peace, it all suddenly felt hollow. "Your ship," she said softly. "It's too damaged to fly." "But my shuttle won't make it far," he interrupted. "This storm eats power faster than you can charge it." Lyra thought for a moment. "There's a repair hub 3 sectors away. If we reach it, you can survive. I can hide your identity until we figure something out." He stared at her. "Why would you do that, Lyra? Helping me means betraying your people." She hesitated, searching for the right words. "Because my people forgot what truth looks like. Maybe you can remind us." Elias smiled again, tired but warm. "You talk like someone who still believes in the light." Lyra helped him stand, her arm around his shoulder. "Maybe I just met someone who carries it." As they moved toward the airlock, the ship groaned from another internal collapse. Sparks flew from the ceiling and alarms began to sound. The hull wouldn't last much longer. They hurried through the corridor, the lights flickering around them. As the docking hatch came into view, a massive tremor shook the ship. Metal screamed, "Go!" Elias shouted. They dove through the airlock as the Vanguard broke apart behind them. The shockwave sent the shuttle spinning away, but Lyra regained control, stabilizing it. Through the window, she watched the last fragments of the human ship disappear into the nebula light. "Your ship," she said softly. Elias stared out with quiet grief. "She carried our last hope. Guess now it's you." Lyra looked at him, the reflection of the stars glimmering in her eyes. "Then we'll make it count." As the nebula raged outside, 2 lives, 1 human, 1 alien, set a new course through the unknown. And somewhere deep within the Empire's data archives, an alert blinked quietly. Unauthorized contact detected. Subject, human origin. The shuttle drifted beyond the storm's edge, its engines quiet, its lights dim to avoid detection. Inside, a fragile calm settled between Lyra and Captain Elias. The human rested in the co-pilot seat, his breathing slow but steady. Lyra sat beside him, adjusting the power readings on the control screen. The silence between them was heavy, filled with questions neither dared to ask. Outside the window, the nebula faded into open space. Stars glittered like tears scattered across a black sea. "You should rest," Lyra said softly, her voice careful. Elias opened one eye, smirking faintly. "You sound like my ship's medic." She used to say that before every crash landing. Lyra smiled weakly. "Did you always crash?" "Only the interesting missions." His humor was quiet, almost shy. It made him seem more alive than the myths described. Lyra had been told humans were wild, creatures of anger and chaos, but this man carried pain like a weight, not a weapon. She finally asked, "Captain, what really happened between humans and the Empire?" He stared out the window, the reflection of starlight glinting in his tired eyes. "You really don't know, do you?" "I know what they teach us," she said slowly. "They said humans destroyed themselves, that the Empire tried to help, but you turned violent. They said humanity couldn't control its emotions, so you had to be erased." Elias gave a short, bitter laugh. "Erased, that's one word for it." He turned toward her, his face serious now. "We didn't destroy ourselves, Lyra. The Zalari came first. They found us when we were still new to the stars. We welcomed them, shared our worlds, our science. But when they realized how fast we learned, how unpredictable we were, they grew afraid. Lyra frowned. Afraid of what? Afraid that we didn't bow, he said. Humans questioned everything. We asked why. We refused control. And the Empire doesn't like anything it can't control. Lyra looked down at her hands, her heart pounding. That can't be true. The Empire stands for unity, for peace. Peace built on silence. Elias interrupted softly. You think I'm lying? She hesitated. I think you're saying something I was never allowed to hear. He reached into his suit and pulled out a small data cube. Scarred. Almost melted. This, he said, placing it in her hand, is what's left of our archives. Records, images, messages, proof of what they did. Lyra stared at the cube as if it were a living thing. You want me to see this? Elias nodded. You need to see it. She slotted the cube into her shuttle's projector. The lights dimmed. A hologram flickered to life in the air, a planet blue and green full of clouds and oceans. Earth. Lyra's breath caught. She had seen pictures of it in forbidden texts, always labeled as fiction. The hologram shifted, showing human cities. Tall glass towers, crowded markets, oceans full of ships. Laughter, music, children. Then explosions. Fire raining from the sky. Lyra covered her mouth. What is this? The day the Zalari fleets came, Elias said quietly. They called it a containment strike. They said humans were a threat to galactic stability. They bombed our colonies, erased our networks, burned every database that held our history. Tears shimmered in his tired eyes. I was born decades after that war. My people hid, rebuilt in secret. We sent out ships like the Vanguard to find proof, so someone out there would remember we existed. Lyra couldn't move. Her chest ached as the hologram showed the destruction, cities falling, skies burning. It didn't look like a war. It looked like extermination. The recording ended, leaving only silence and the faint hum of the engines. Lyra turned off the projector slowly. Her hands were trembling. All my life I believed the Empire protected the galaxy from monsters, she whispered. But maybe the monster was us. Elias looked at her, his voice soft. You didn't start it, Lyra, but you can decide what happens next. She met his eyes, her own full of confusion and fear. If I show this to anyone, I'll be executed. Maybe, he said, leaning back. But the truth doesn't die just because it's dangerous. Lyra looked out the window. The stars seemed different now, colder, more distant. The vastness of space suddenly felt heavy, as if she were carrying centuries of guilt. After a long silence, she said quietly, There's a data relay not far from here. I could send the evidence to the free colonies. Maybe someone will listen. Elias smiled faintly. You'd risk everything for people you just met? Lyra shook her head. Not for you, she said softly. For the truth. He laughed weakly, the sound dry but real. You sound like a human now. Before she could reply, the control panel beeped sharply. A red alert flashed across the screen. Incoming signal detected. Source Imperial Command Vessel. Distance 3 minutes. Lyra's blood turned cold. They've found us. Elias forced himself upright. You have to go dark. Shut down all emissions. Hide the ship in the asteroid belt. I can't, she said quickly. The engines are too hot. They'll detect the radiation. Then we fight, he said. She stared at him. Fight an Imperial cruiser? We'll be vaporized. Elias smiled grimly. That's the problem with myths, Lyra. People forget how hard we are to kill. He reached for the manual weapon locker under the seat, a relic from human design. Inside was an old plasma rifle, scratched but functional. He tossed it to her. Lyra caught it, feeling the weight in her hands. She had never held a weapon before. The proximity alarm screamed. Blue light filled the cockpit as a massive shadow loomed ahead, the Imperial ship emerging from hyperspace. Lyra gritted her teeth. They're hailing us. Elias took a breath. Don't answer. The comm system blinked again, an order from command. Unidentified shuttle, power down immediately, and prepare for boarding. Failure to comply will result in destruction. Lyra looked at Elias. What do we do? He gave a tired smile. We tell the truth, even if no one lives to hear it. The shuttle trembled as the Imperial guns charged. Lyra's hands hovered over the controls. Her mind raced, truth or survival. And then, without thinking, she pushed the throttle forward. The shuttle roared toward the stars, toward the impossible. The engine screamed as Lyra's shuttle cut through the void, streaking away from the Imperial cruiser like a spark fleeing a storm. Energy bolts flashed past the hull, shaking the small craft with every near miss. The ship's alarms cried out in panic, red lights flooding the cockpit. "Shields at 20%, Lyra shouted, gripping the controls tightly. "I can't keep this up." Captain Elias leaned forward, pale but determined. "Head for the asteroid field. Those rocks will hide our heat signature." Lyra nodded and pulled the lever hard. The shuttle dove sharply, entering a sea of tumbling black stones. The larger asteroids glowed with veins of minerals, reflecting the blasts that followed them. The Imperial cruiser couldn't enter directly without risking collision, but smaller hunter drones detached and followed. "They're sending drones," she yelled. "Then we improvise," Elias said, pushing himself toward the co-pilot seat. His movements were slow, he was still weak, but his eyes were sharp, focused. "Give me access to manual targeting." "You can still shoot?" she asked, surprised. He gave her a crooked smile. "I've had worse days." The drone alarm blared, 3 signatures closing in fast. Lyra twisted the shuttle between the drifting rocks. A drone clipped an asteroid, exploding in a burst of fire. 2 more came through, relentless. Elias locked onto the nearest one. "Hold her steady," he fired. A bright beam cut through the dark, hitting the drone dead center. It spun out, shattered, and vanished in silence. The second drone darted past the explosion, firing. One blast grazed their hull, melting part of the outer panel. "Hit!" Lyra gasped, smoke filling the cockpit. Elias gritted his teeth. "Keep flying, I'll handle it." The second drone circled for another attack. Elias waited, patient, then fired a short burst, clean, precise. The drone split apart, silence returned. Only the steady hum of the ship remained. Lyra's chest rose and fell rapidly as she steadied the controls. "Are we clear?" Elias asked. "For now," she said, exhaling. "But the cruiser will track the debris field. They'll find us soon." Elias leaned back, breathing heavily. "Then we need to disappear." Lyra adjusted their trajectory toward the shadow of a massive asteroid shaped like a broken moon. Its gravity field was strong enough to distort sensors. She guided the shuttle into the dark side, turning off all non-essential systems. "The engines dimmed to black. Power down," she said. "We're invisible. For now." For a moment, everything was silent. Only their breathing filled the cockpit. Lyra turned toward him. "How did you do that?" "Those shots, perfect aim," he smiled faintly. "Instinct. You don't forget how to survive when the universe wants you dead." She looked at him carefully. His eyes were weary yet alive with quiet fire. There was something dangerous and beautiful in his calm. Something human. Lyra turned back to the dark window. "If they catch us, they'll destroy everything." "The data cube, you, me?" "I know," Elias said softly. "That's why we don't let them." But as silence fell again, Lyra noticed something strange on her display. A signal. Faint but nearby. It wasn't Imperial. It was Zalari. Her stomach sank. "There's another ship out there." Elias frowned. "Friend or foe?" She hesitated. "It's from my own station, Control 47. Elias narrowed his eyes. "Your people are tracking you." Lyra's throat tightened. "They must have followed my shuttle's launch trail." "Commander Threx." He must have known. The radio crackled to life suddenly. A cold voice echoed through the cabin. "Lyra of Station 47, this is Commander Threx. Power down your engines and surrender the fugitive. Your actions have been logged as treason." Elias clenched his jaw. "Guess that answers the question." Lyra's pulse pounded in her ears. "Threx, listen to me. The man you call a fugitive is not what you think. He's proof that the Empire lied." "Enough!" Threx's voice thundered through the speakers. "You've been deceived by enemy propaganda. Humans are extinct. You are harboring an echo of their madness." Lyra's voice broke with frustration. "He's alive. I saw him bleed, breathe. He's real. The Empire destroyed them." "Then you will join them," Threx replied coldly. The signal cut. Elias looked at her quietly. "You knew this could happen." "I thought I could hide it," she whispered. "But I was wrong." The proximity alarm screamed again. Threx's ship was approaching fast. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "You said there's a repair hub nearby?" "Yes," she said. "Sector 12. It's abandoned, but it still has oxygen reserves and comm relays." "Then that's our chance," he said. "If we can reach it before they catch us, we can upload your data cube to the outer colonies." Lyra hesitated. "We'll never make it with both ships chasing us." Elias smiled faintly. "Who said we both have to?" She turned toward him sharply. No, don't even say it. He held her gaze. Lyra, you're the only one they won't shoot on sight. You take the cube and get to the relay. I'll lead them away. I'm not leaving you, she said fiercely. You wouldn't have survived without me. He laughed quietly. Seems to be a habit for humans. Before she could argue, the console flashed. Incoming missiles. Threx's cruiser had locked on. Elias grabbed the manual override and rerouted control to his seat. I'll distract them. You get ready to eject the data core. Lyra's voice trembled. Don't do this. Too late, he said, pressing the emergency throttle. The shuttle burst from the asteroid shadow, engines flaring bright. The cruiser immediately opened fire. Bolts of plasma streaked across the black sky. Elias weaved between them, drawing the enemy away from the relay's direction. Elias, she cried, trying to override his control. You'll die. He smiled sadly through the cracked reflection of his visor. Maybe, but at least you'll make them remember us. The ship shuddered under another impact. The hull cracked. The alarms wailed. Then, with one last surge of strength, Elias fired the escape pod sequence. The data cube shot out through a small launch tube, carrying Lyra and the last human truth into the void. Through the shaking glass, she saw his face one final time. Calm. Brave. Human. Then the shuttle exploded in light. The shockwave hurled her pod into darkness. The stars vanished. The world went silent. But in that silence, Lyra heard his last words echoing in her memory. Make them remember, and she promised herself she would. Darkness surrounded Lyra. She couldn't tell if she was alive or drifting through a dream. Her body floated weightlessly, her vision blurred by flashes of color, streaks of blue, gold, and black twisting through her mind. Then came the sharp sting of cold air hissing through a cracked seal. Her eyes snapped open. The escape pod spun slowly through open space. Broken panels flickered weakly around her, and a low alarm beeped from the control panel. For a moment she didn't move. Her head throbbed, her arms felt heavy, and the taste of burnt air lingered on her tongue. Then it hit her. Elias. Lyra sat up suddenly, heart pounding. Captain Elias, she shouted into the empty pod. Do you copy? Only static answered her. Her gaze darted to the small viewport. Far behind in the distance, a faint orange glow still burned among the stars. The wreckage of the shuttle scattered like ash. Her breath caught in her throat. He was gone. For a long moment she couldn't breathe. The man who had defied death, who had carried the truth of his people through centuries, was now just silence. Lyra pressed a trembling hand against the glass. You said humans don't die easy, she whispered. Then prove it. But no answer came. Her throat tightened as she wiped her tears roughly. No, she said to herself. Not yet. The pod's console flickered to life. A weak system voice spoke. Trajectory drift detected. Power cells at 14%. Closest object, abandoned relay hub, sector 12. Distance, 0.9 light minutes. Lyra exhaled shakily. The same hub Elias had mentioned. His final words echoed again in her mind, make them remember. She tightened the safety straps and took manual control. The small engines hummed softly as she steered toward the relay hub. Outside, the stars blurred past. The emptiness of space pressed against her like a weight. Yet inside her chest burned something new. Purpose. After what felt like hours, the pod approached a shadowed structure hidden behind a field of shattered satellites. The relay hub drifted like a ghost, its metal skin cracked, its antennas twisted, its lights long dead. No signs of life, no transmissions, just the echo of forgotten history. Lyra guided the pod into the docking port. The airlock hissed open, releasing a thin mist of frozen vapor. She floated through the narrow corridor, flashlight beam cutting through the dark. Dust and silence greeted her. The station had been abandoned for decades. Broken screens lined the walls, and faded symbols of the old empire glared at her like ghosts of lies. At the control room, she found an ancient data terminal still intact. She connected her wrist drive, pulling up the contents of the human data cube Elias had given her. The holographic projection shimmered above the console. Earth, the colonies, the war, the destruction. Her heart clenched. I'll finish what you started, she whispered. The relay system was weak, its antennas damaged. But if she rerouted power from the pod's core, she could send one long-range burst across the outer systems. It would be enough to reach the free colonies. the small hidden worlds untouched by the Empire's control. Lyra connected the cables. Sparks flew as she forced energy into the old system. The console groaned to life. Transmission power 28%, 45%, 60%. Come on, she muttered, watching the gauge rise. Just as she prepared the upload, a red warning flashed across the screen. Incoming ship detected. Her blood froze. She turned to the window. A distant glow was cutting through the dark, sleek silver and unmistakable. The Imperial insignia shimmered on its hull. They had found her. Lyra's hands shook. No, not now. The station trembled as the cruiser entered proximity. She could hear the faint rumble of its engines through the walls. A voice echoed through the comm. "This is Commander Threx. We have your location, Lyra. You've run far enough." Her heart raced. "You killed him," she whispered under her breath. "You destroyed everything." Threx's tone was calm, almost pitying. "You're young, Lyra. Misguided. You've been poisoned by the last ghost of a dying species. Stand down, and the Empire will forgive your mistake." Lyra stared at the console, the upload sequence only halfway complete. "Forgive me," she said softly. "For learning the truth?" "For believing lies," he replied coldly. She took a deep breath. "Then I guess I'm guilty." With a single motion, she slammed her hand on the transmit key. The holographic projection expanded, its data streams racing through the relay circuits. The system hummed with energy as ancient human files, images, recordings, voices burst into the stars, traveling faster than light toward every known signal network. Threx's voice shouted through the comm, furious now. "Stop the transmission! Destroy the hub!" Outside, bright flashes tore across the void as the Imperial guns charged. Lyra held her ground, staring at the console. Upload complete. Transmission sent. A small smile broke across her face. "You did it, Elias," she whispered. "They'll know now." The station shook violently. A blast tore through the outer ring, throwing Lyra to the ground. Fire and smoke filled the control room. She struggled to her feet, coughing. The hull was breaking apart. Through the shattered glass, she could see the Imperial cruiser closing in, ready to finish the job. She reached for the emergency hatch, climbing into an escape chute. The system barely responded. Alarms blared around her. Another explosion rocked the hub. The air pressure dropped rapidly. Her lungs burned. "Computer," she gasped. "Launch emergency pod, any direction." Command accepted. Launching in 5, 4. The floor cracked beneath her. Flames licked the walls. Lyra clutched her helmet, whispering a quiet prayer to the stars. 3, 2, 1. The pod shot out just as the relay hub exploded behind her, a burst of light that outshone every nearby star. The Imperial cruiser was caught in the shockwave, its hull scorched, sensors blinded. Lyra's pod spun away into the void, battered but intact. Inside, she watched the explosion fade. "It's done," she whispered. But even as she floated into deep space, exhausted and alone, a faint voice echoed through her headset. Static, broken, but familiar. "Lyra, if you're hearing this, then maybe I wasn't wrong about you." Her eyes widened. The transmission was old, recorded, but it was Elias. "We humans believed in stories, Lyra. Maybe now you'll write one worth remembering." Tears slipped down her cheeks. She smiled through them, whispering softly, "I promise." Her pod drifted into the quiet between stars, carrying the truth of two worlds, and the memory of a human who refused to die forgotten. Space was quiet again. For days, maybe weeks, Lyra's escape pod drifted among the stars. The explosion of the relay hub had hurled her far beyond the Empire's scanning range. The food rations were almost gone, the air filters weak, but she didn't care anymore. She had done it. The truth was free. Sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she could still hear Elias's voice through the static, his calm tone, his quiet humor, his final promise echoing in her mind. It felt less like memory and more like a heartbeat that refused to fade. "We humans believed in stories, Lyra. Maybe now you'll write one worth remembering." She had, and it was only beginning. Weeks later, across the galaxy, the signal she sent began to spread like wildfire. On forgotten mining worlds, workers paused as the holographic message appeared above their consoles. Images of Earth, of oceans, laughter and blue skies long erased from the records. On merchant ships, captains watched in silence as the truth of the human war played before their eyes. Zalari fleets destroying cities, burning colonies, silencing children's screams. Everywhere the message reached, disbelief turned to shock. Shock turned to anger. And anger turned into something far stronger. Hope. The people had been told the humans were monsters. Now they saw who the real monsters were. Rumors began to spread through every sector. A Zalari officer betrayed the Empire. A living human was found. The old myths were real. The name Lyra became a whisper, then a symbol, then a legend, but Lyra didn't know any of that yet. She was half-conscious, floating inside her pod, the stars spinning slowly outside. The oxygen gauge blinked dangerously low. Her vision flickered in and out, then something moved. A shadow blocked the light. A massive shape drifted overhead, sleek and gray with glowing blue engines. Lyra blinked weakly, thinking she was hallucinating. But the ship was real. It wasn't Imperial. Its design was older, rougher. Human, the comm system crackled to life. Unidentified life form. This is Vanguard 2. Your signal matches the distress transmission we received from Sector 12. Identify yourself, Lyra gasped. Her throat was dry. She forced her voice to work. This is Lyra, Zalari officer. Carrying human data. Silence. Then another voice came through, deeper, warmer. Lyra, did you say human data? Her chest tightened. Yes, Captain Elias. He sent me. The channel went quiet again. Then the reply came, softer this time, almost emotional. You're not going to believe this, Lyra. But this is Vanguard 2, successor to the ship your captain commanded. And we've been waiting for that name for a very long time. Her vision blurred with tears. He made it. He made me promise. We know, the voice said gently. Docking bay is open. We're bringing you home. When she awoke again, Lyra was lying in a clean med bay. Warm light filled the room, and the hum of engines surrounded her like a lullaby. She blinked at the faces leaning over her, human faces. Real humans. A woman with tan skin and bright eyes smiled softly. You're safe. Rest easy, hero. Lyra sat up slowly, her body still weak. Her eyes widened as she looked around. The crew, men and women, young and old, were human. Some wore old Terran badges, others rough rebel uniforms. The ship felt alive, full of voices and movement. How? She whispered. You survived? A tall man stepped forward, his uniform bearing the same insignia as Elias's. Not many of us. We've been in hiding for generations. But your signal, it reached us all. Every hidden base, every listening post. You woke us up. Lyra covered her mouth, tears streaming down her silver cheeks. He said humans don't die easy. The man smiled faintly. He was right. He walked to the control panel and pressed a key. A large holographic map appeared. Stars, colonies, and communication lines glowing across the galaxy. Dozens of red marks flashed where uprisings had begun. Your message didn't just expose the truth, he said. It started a movement. Whole planets are refusing orders. Soldiers are turning against the Empire. The people are demanding answers. Lyra stared at the map, unable to speak. I didn't mean to start a war. The man shook his head. Not a war. A reckoning. He handed her a small metal disc, the insignia of the old Vanguard. Elias's ship was our beginning. Yours is our return. Lyra held the insignia close to her heart. He gave everything for this. And so did you, the man said quietly. Now the galaxy knows the truth because of you both. Days later, Lyra stood on the viewing deck as the ship prepared to leave orbit. Below them was a blue planet, Earth reborn from centuries of myth. The atmosphere shimmered with clouds, oceans glimmering like glass. The humans had returned home. Elias's people had survived, hidden in deep space, rebuilding slowly. And now, with Lyra's broadcast, countless worlds reached out to them, ready to stand together. As she watched the sunrise over Earth's horizon, Lyra felt a presence beside her, his voice in her mind, calm and strong. You kept your promise, she smiled softly. You never really left. The captain of Vanguard 2 approached. We've picked up new transmissions, he said. Colonies from across the sectors are requesting alliance talks. The Empire's hold is cracking. Lyra nodded. Then it's time. He tilted his head. Time for what? She turned to the window, her violet eyes glowing in the light. Time for the galaxy to remember what it means to be human. The engines flared to life. and the ship rose toward the stars, toward the beginning of something new. In the far reaches of the galaxy, on abandoned worlds and crowded stations, a phrase began to spread, a saying whispered with pride and defiance. The humans are back. And wherever that message went, so did her name. Lyra, the alien who believed in myths and made them real, because sometimes all it takes is one voice to wake a sleeping galaxy. And this time it was hers.